Hey everyone, real quick before you check out this month's recording of IT Office Hours, I've got the info on our next upcoming event. So phishing or phishing scams are one of the most common techniques that criminals are using to gain access to personal and professional data and networks all over. So join us on Wednesday, July 17th at 12 p.m. for our next IT Office Hours session. We are going to dig into the latest trends that we're seeing in phishing scams, as well as how you can identify them, key things that you want to make sure that your staff is on the lookout for, and then some of the solutions that may help you mitigate your risk at the office. So you'll find a registration link right below this video. Make sure to click that and get yourself all taken care of so that I'll see you then. But otherwise, thank you and enjoy the recording. All right, everyone, good afternoon. It is 12 o'clock on the dot, so welcome to IT Office Hours with Andromeda Technology Solutions. Hope everyone is doing well today. My name is Abby. I head up marketing and communications over here at Andromeda, and we're happy to have you. Today, we're going to dig into 9 different ways your employees' work email and credentials can lead to a data breach. Before we dig in too deep though, I do have a nifty little giveaway I'd like to offer you guys. If you wouldn't mind, hop in the chat just to say hello and let me know, are you guys currently using any form of password management tool? Yes or no? We're going to talk a lot today about passwords, usernames, and online accounts and how they can impact the business's security. So again, if you've got a password management tool in place, let me know, yes or no. And I'm going to raffle off, or I'm going to grab one of the respondents and send you a nifty little Andromeda mug as a thank you for showing up today and doing a little learning. But without further ado, we will get moving. I do have one person saying yes so far, so you go. Alrighty. So first, for any of our new attendees, I just wanted to cover, what is IT Office Hours with Andromeda anyway. For any new faces, IT Office Hours is a monthly webinar series that we are hosting at Andromeda, where we dig into popular topics in IT, cybersecurity, and business technology. You're going to see things like popular scams and criminal techniques that are hitting the market, some tips and tricks to share with your staff, some solutions, either software, maybe hardware, but just solutions in general that may be able to help you defend your business. And then finally, we will always touch on compliance and regulations where it makes sense to make sure we communicate that with you guys. So this month, we're covering 9 different ways or areas where your employees' work email and credentials can lead to a data breach. Before we dig into that, though, I wanted to make sure to take just a couple moments to talk about data breaches in general. This is a term that's thrown around all the time on the news. We hear cybersecurity, data breach, third-party breach, and I think that a lot of times it kind of goes over our heads, and I wanted to make sure we have a clear definition. So a data breach is really just any type of security incident in which information is accessed without permission or authorization. This does not require that data is actually stolen, only that it was accessed in some way. So really, all it takes to have a data breach occur is to have data visibly seen by somebody who it wasn't supposed to be seen by. But data breaches might look like employees accidentally sending out confidential information. An employee grabs the wrong file and sends it to a client or a vendor or anybody really. That's a data breach. Physical theft of information or data from your physical location, whether that's hardware or a hard drive. Anyone accessing your network without permission, again. And then we also see them show up very often as third-party data breaches and supply chain breaches. So for the purposes of today's conversation, I want to dig a little deeper into what exactly a third-party breach constitutes. And really, that's just going to be any time a third party that had data that you gave them was compromised. Examples of third parties are going to be credit card companies and bureaus, software companies. Software as a service is big. They've got a lot of data, so when they get breached. Retail locations, that could be physical, the physical store or their online presence. Government agencies, we hear very often, unfortunately, about municipalities, even our federal government getting breached, and really other businesses. And I do want to take one moment to say, when we talk about other businesses, I think a good question we want to make sure we're asking ourselves is, in what situation would I be the third party that might be getting breached, and how would that impact my clients? Sorry, I'm getting some alerts here on my screen. But anyway, that's going to be what third-party breaches are, and that's going to be kind of the context of this conversation. Next, why does this matter to your business? Third-party data breaches can impact your employees personally, but they also have a great impact on the business as well. And this is due to the fact that most employees, our staff, don't follow the safest password practices with their online accounts. So when a third-party breach happens, you run the risk of either, the professional accounts getting breached that you use for the business day-to-day, but also your employee accounts getting breached, and then that kind of trickling back to the business. So to put that in context, I wanted to share some numbers with you guys. So first, we've got the average adult in the United States manages over 130 different accounts online. So just think about that for a moment. Think about all of the different accounts that you're using day to day for your personal life, your social life, your professional life, and how all of those different accounts open up vulnerabilities to you both personally and professionally. So to take that a step further, about 39% of these adults in the United States admit to reusing some variation or the same password over and over again between accounts, okay? And that's just the people that were willing to admit it. So we would probably assume that number is a little bit higher than that even. So then last but not least, we've got 81% of hacking-related breaches leveraged either a stolen, through a third-party breach, a stolen password, or a weak password. And in some cases, it's a combination of both. So that means that each of your employees has, on average, 130 different accounts. They may be reusing passwords, and most of the activity that criminals are taking to do damage to businesses just like yours are taking advantage of these weak passwords across these different accounts. So we're about to dig into the 9 different areas and the 9 different types of accounts online that we want to make sure that we're cognizant of. But I wanted to give some context to this conversation. So things I want you to be considering as we go through this list. Number 1, if a criminal or anybody had access to this account, and what I mean by access is if they had access to log in, what could they do? What could they do with the account if they were logged in as me? Then number 2, so if a criminal had access to this account, what could they learn? So what data is housed within this account or this space that a criminal could then use to do damage to others, myself, or the business? And then number 3 is going to be, if a criminal had access to this account, what other accounts do they have access to now, whether it's through an integration, an API, or potentially just having that one password that I'm using in other spots. So now we're going to go into the 9 different types of accounts that we're using in the business and in our personal lives that can impact. So the first is a big one, and this is going to be your HR and your payroll. Things like ADP, Paychecks, Ceridian, HR applications. Here we use Zenefits. Criminals want to hack into these for many reasons, and they're pretty obvious. We've got information in these accounts related to social security numbers, dates of birth of employees, salary information, tax information, all of those types of things. And to take that even further, the staff accessing these typically are having, the admin credentials like our HR managers, our CFOs, our financial or owners. If a criminal gets access to that account, they have a lot of power. Number 2 are going to be the email services that we use day to day. Pretty much any email service that you can think of has dealt with some type of a breach in some shape or form, whether that was Yahoo, Gmail, Office 365 is not, it's not invincible either. Windows, Outlook, all of the different email platforms that we're using, they have suffered from breaches. And more importantly, think about all of the data that's coming in and out of your system through these email services and how valuable that would be to a criminal if they were able to access it. Number 3 is going to be our CRM, or client or customer relationship manager. Big names in this space are going to be Salesforce, HubSpot, maybe MailChimp. We use Infusionsoft, Zoho, but CRMs are another data-rich spot that criminals are attacking. So imagine there's a lot of valuable information. We'll use Salesforce for instance. If you're a shop that uses that, they've got address information, contact information, emails. Sometimes we've got purchase information for for vendor purchase information from us or to us. So that's a lot of very valuable data that criminals are going to try and access through those accounts. 4th are going to be travel services and travel accounts. Everybody may not be using these, but in some instances you're booking for plane travel, hotels, things of that nature, and that information is just as valuable. You're putting credit card information that you may have saved in there. You've got address information. If you're booking airfare, you've got social security numbers. And I mean, again, we're thinking about what could a criminal do? They could purchase airfare. What information could they gather? They could gather all of that contact information. And then, what other accounts maybe am I using similar passwords on that I need to be cognizant of? Number 5 are going to be communication-related accounts, things like your Verizon, AT&T, Sprint, T-Mobile, the things that we're using to purchase cell phones for the office, our internet service providers, even, let's say, Comcast, those types of things. Those accounts also, again, they've got very valuable information about you, about the business, about your purchase information, all of that stuff. Number 6, we're buying things online, e-commerce. So I work in marketing, we're purchasing envelopes, we're purchasing things for our direct mail, we're purchasing supplies for the office, all of those types of things. And I do that through an account that I created with my work email that if it were breached would open up a vulnerability if I wasn't practicing proper password maintenance. Number 7 is pretty obvious, banking and finance applications online and our accounts associated with that. I mean, I don't even have to mention all of the valuable information that is housed in here, but even thinking further, down the line beyond the bank itself, think about your accounting software and the information that those types of accounts host. And, if a criminal had access to that, boy, what kind of damage could they do? Or, what kind of information could they steal from us and how would they use it? Number 8 are going to be collaboration applications. When we live in the world of the cloud, it makes things a lot easier. It allows us to save files. It allows us to access things quickly and easily and seamlessly. But this does also open us up to a lot of vulnerability because a lot of information is being hosted and saved in the cloud. And if we don't have proper password maintenance and if we don't have good security to help protect ourselves, criminals are going to walk in and they have access to, who knows what. Number 9, social media, the big bad social media. We know, every single one of these icons has had their time in the spotlight with respect to a data breach. Facebook has been hacked. LinkedIn has been hacked. Twitter has been breached. Instagram, all of them have been breached. And a lot of times I think that we don't believe that those breaches are very serious, but just think about all of the information that's available on you or your staff or your business on these accounts. You can find out where somebody lives, you can find out their phone number, you can get their email address. If you were able to hack into the account, you have access to their entire network and all of their contacts. All of that information is ready and available if a hacker has access to these. And then additionally, if a hacker or a criminal gets access to your social media account, they can then use that to communicate and then try to infiltrate all of your connections. So it's pretty powerful stuff. So those are going to be the 9 different things, but just to put that into context, that's 9 different areas, and that doesn't even cover all of the different accounts that you're going to have online, the way they integrate with each other. There's all kinds of applications that we're using for our business all over the internet, and each one of them opens you up to a new vulnerability. And at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we're taking care of this. So there are 2 different ways a third-party breach can expose you to your own data breach that we want to make sure that we're discussing. The first is going to be an account that was set up for business use is among those that were exposed. So to give you an example, for example, the travel account your HR manager set up to purchase plane tickets for people at the office, the data was exposed. The criminal now has not only the access to that account where, again, they could book travel if they wanted, but more importantly, they have the HR manager's password, okay? So if that criminal then is able to figure out what platforms you're using for your maintenance and your management, maybe you're using, like we do, a Zenefits, a cloud-based HR platform, the criminal can now log in there if the password is the same, and they have access to all kinds of data on your business that would be very, very tragic for them to have. The second example is going to be that an employee's personal account is breached. So again, if my Gmail account was breached, I don't know what very much a criminal could do with that, but if I use that same password for my personal Gmail account that I use to log into my Outlook at work, that criminal now can walk straight into the office as if they were me, the virtual office. They can log into my email. They could send emails as if they were me. They could just sit back and watch and spy to learn more about the business so that they can use it against any member here. They can do all kinds of things. So it's very important to understand that even if it's the employee's personal accounts that are getting breached, that does give a criminal the opportunity to use that and leverage that against your business. So one more example, just to, if I didn't already nail this home enough. So imagine a criminal stole your Facebook password. You've probably seen the kind of spammy messages that criminals tend to send out. They will hijack somebody's Facebook inbox, and all of a sudden you receive a message from your aunt that says, I saw this funny video on the net, click it and check it out. I'm sure that you guys have seen those happen before. They're annoying. They're not the end of the world. You probably just message them, the person, your aunt, and say, hey, I think that you got hacked, and you don't even think about it again. But the problem here is that we don't always think about the impact down the line. So imagine your password was stolen, and that either directly or closely matches the same password you used for QuickBooks at the office, okay? So the criminal now has the ability to log into your Facebook and do whatever types of annoying things or very serious things they want to do in terms of criminal activity. But then they also have access to and the ability to log into your QuickBooks at the office. And again, think about the ramifications of that. That's pretty scary stuff, right? So I scared you. Now we're going to talk about what we can do about this. So what can you do? You have employees with personal and professional accounts. We really can't keep third-party breaches from happening because you can't control the network or the security of another company. But there are some things that we can do to try and set up best practices and protect ourselves. The first thing we're going to talk about, I'm sure you've heard it before. This won't be the last time you'll hear it either, and I know that it's something that we all kind of scoff at, but we must make sure that we are creating the strongest passwords possible for ourselves, and then we need to make sure that the staff at the business are doing the same. So what that's going to look like is it's going to mean on average you need to make sure your passwords are at least 8 characters in length, if not longer. You want to make sure that they have a mixture of upper and lowercase letters. You want to make sure that they're using symbols. We would recommend more than just one. You want to make sure there's numbers in there. We also want to make sure that they are not using anything personal, things like names of children, names of pets, places that we've lived, anything like that, even your favorite sports team. You don't want to use anything that's guessable in that way. We want to make sure they're always unique. And I'm going to circle back. I understand that's difficult. Imagine you have 130 different passwords. How are you going to make sure that they're unique? It's a problem, right? We've got an answer. But also we want to make sure that they're random if possible. You don't want to be able to read them. You don't want to be able to make sense of them because the less they make sense, the stronger they are and the more difficult they will be to crack. So that's something that you want to do both personally and professionally. But when we're talking about the business and something that you can do, we want to make sure that we're creating a password management policy if we don't already have one in place, okay? So what that's going to be, and we're going to build that on 4 key tenets, really. So the first is going to be, going back to the previous slide, we want to make sure that we're setting standards at the business for all passwords. So any staff member, any account that they're creating, they need to understand, listen, at Andromeda, we require that the passwords are this long and they've got this many characters and X, Y, and Z. We want to make sure that we're setting standards for that password strength. Second, we're going to mandate that passwords are changed regularly. Now, on average, we would recommend, and this is our standard recommendation, that you should make sure that your employees are changing all passwords at a minimum of every 90 days. That's a sweet spot number. It's not quite too often, and it doesn't allow you to be negligent either. The third thing is we're going to set up a lockout procedure for invalid attempts. This is something that you've probably seen in your own day-to-day and you've even maybe been annoyed by, but when you're trying to log into an account online and maybe you forgot your password or something of that nature and you've tried a couple times and it locks you out, that's a lockout procedure. And while it's annoying, it's a great tool and it's going to help and defend you against somebody who shouldn't be accessing an account, but it'll also defend you against those brute force hack attacks where somebody is just literally sitting there trying password after password after password to try and break into the account that they're trying to get into. Then the fourth and final thing that I'm going to recommend for a password management policy is going to be implementing some type of a password management solution at the business. A password manager is going to help you take care of most all of these situations with password strength and needing to remember them and those types of things, but it's also going to add another layer of security. So with that, in my invitations, I promised I would share a good tool with you guys. So a tool that we recommend at Andromeda and that our staff uses as well, myself included, is going to be LastPass. And LastPass is a password management tool with both free and paid options available to you. It's called a password manager. And the way that works is essentially it's going to give you, it's a vault, if you will. It's going to house all of your different passwords across all of the different accounts. And it's also going to help you make sure that they're encrypted, that they're secure, and that they're maintained well. So with that being the vault concept here, the way that you access or the way that you're able to get into your LastPass account is with what's called a master password. And so the master password becomes the most important thing that you have to be able to remember or have access to. So the number one thing I'm going to make sure that we say here with recommending a password management tool is that you have to make sure that you protect the security of your master password. It should be very long. I mean, I would recommend at a minimum 20 characters. It should be a jumbled up mess of characters and numbers and uppercase and lowercase. And then additionally, we're going to want to make sure that we're protecting it physically. Carl Utz, our sales director, he always says, and this is true, he keeps his master password for his LastPass account in his safe in his house. These are not supposed to be located on a Post-it note. We don't have them on our desktop. We don't have them in our desk. We have to make sure that we're really, really taking care of the security of the master password, because as soon as somebody gets access to that, they've got everything. But I'm going to take you through a couple neat features that LastPass has that I think are pretty valuable. It has a great cell phone application that I use almost every day. It's pretty neat. So I have an iPhone, so I scan my thumb and then it takes me in and it'll put my passwords into my applications, which is very helpful. It also has a great integration into your web browser, which again, pretty much the same idea. You log in and then it'll help you log into things. So I kind of grabbed a snip here to show you guys. One of the other neat things that LastPass is able to do for you is it can actually help you and your staff create and generate secure passwords. So I took a little snip here. The little red box at the top right of the corner is the button for LastPass with those 3 dots. And when that's lit up, it means that I'm logged in and it's working. But if I click that, I can click the option for generate a secure password and this window shows up. So this is really neat. I can tell it how long I want my password to be. I can tell it that, you can see here, I said I don't want it to be easy to say. I don't want it to be easy to read. I do want it to use all characters because that's going to be the most secure option to choose. And then I chose on the right, you can see it's using uppercase, lowercase, numbers, symbols, all of it. So that's a fantastic tool, and you can actually see right there the password it generated for me. And I don't know about you guys, but I can't read that, and I know I certainly wouldn't remember it. So I have a feeling that a criminal would have a hard time guessing at that one. Another really neat feature that I make use of a lot at the office for this password management tool, and I know that this is something that we do day to day here, is that LastPass allows you to securely share your passwords with your coworkers. So there are times where we all need to use the same account and maybe we're sharing passwords or something of that nature, and we know that's not a good practice to be engaging in. For instance, for myself, I need to get into our marketing applications to help set things up for the sales team, and instead of having, let's say Carl, for instance, instead of having him give me his password, he shares his password with me via link or via LastPass. That way I never see it. And then anytime he updates it to our standard every 90 days, it's going to automate that for me. So again, I mean, LastPass is fantastic. In case you can't tell, I'm a firm believer in it. We all believe in it at Andromeda, and we definitely recommend its use. But there is actually one other thing that we can help you with, and this is a service that Andromeda can help you guys set up. But we can help with dark web monitoring to catch on to third-party breaches before it's a little bit too late. So we've been offering this service for about a year now, and essentially how it works is when you set it up for your business, you tell us, you know, this is my domain. So for instance, we are wenetwork.com. So you put wenetwork.com into the tool, and then it is going to be scanning and monitoring 24/7, 365, the dark web in discussion boards, chat rooms, peer-to-peer spaces, malicious sites, kind of all over the place. And it's going to be looking for anything associated with wenetwork.com. So for instance, using myself as an example, let's say I used Pinterest online, which is a social media site. I use Pinterest to get ideas for recipes I want to cook. And Pinterest got hacked, and my email address for abbyl@wenetwork.com was among the ones that was hacked, right? What the tool is going to do is it's going to say, hey, Andromeda, we need you to know that Abby's email and her password have been made available due to a third-party breach. You want to let her know she needs to change it. So then we get ahead of the criminal, and now they don't really have anything that's usable. They have a password, they can try to use it, but it's outdated, and thanks to my password management solution, it doesn't match any of the other tools or any of the other accounts I'm logging into online. So that's what makes that tool so valuable, because it kind of helps you learn about breaches and issues before you hear about them on the 5 o'clock news. So that is pretty much all I've got for you guys today. I know that was pretty dense. We're going to be sharing this information with you. I have a recording of this. I'll send it out tomorrow so you can share it with your team. But I'd like to open it up to any questions that you may have that I can answer. So I'll kind of hang out and you guys can throw those at me. Would you recommend the free version of LastPass or the paid version? I think, well, they both have, I would need to look into this a little further. I use the free version. It satisfies most any need that you have. And again, when I was bringing that up, it was exclusively to share with you guys that that's a valuable tool that we make use of. There are paid versions and also a family sharing version as well if you wanted to use this at home. But I think honestly, the free version is adequate enough for your use at the office. And I mean, you can share passwords with each other. You can do a password and security audit with it, which is pretty neat. And it does everything that I need it to do, and it has us pretty secure. So I would recommend either, whichever makes sense for you. Can you use LastPass on your cell phone? Absolutely. That's one of my favorite things about LastPass, to be honest. Like I said, it's really neat. So I have an iPhone. I don't know what everybody else has, but they have a fantastic smartphone application. And the neat thing is, so I don't use the cloud keychain or any of the stuff that's built into Apple, and I don't use passwords in my browser. The only thing I use is LastPass. But the really neat thing is basically when you're in an application or you're trying to do something, it'll prompt you and say, hey, do you want to fill your password information from LastPass? Because as I'm sure you can imagine now, I've got all of these accounts set up with these really long, complex passwords. I don't remember any of them, but so I just scan my thumb, or you can put in your master password, and then it'll input the data straight into whatever application you're trying to use, and it's really seamless. I mean, I love it. The really easy thing, obviously, is that it uses the thumbprint, because otherwise, how would I remember my master password? But that's great. And actually, one other thing to note that I didn't mention about LastPass as well is it actually associates the user with the IP address of the computer that you're using. So you couldn't, let's say, if a criminal somehow had access to your master password and they tried to use that and log in from a second device or a third device that you'd never registered, it won't allow you access. It'll actually force you to give it access via an email address or something of that, not an email address, an email message. Or something of that nature. So it is definitely very secure, and they've got a lot of great information related to the security of it, and building that trust on their website as well. But yeah, I mean, I love it. I think that the integration it has into the Google, I use Google Chrome at the office and for my personal use, the tool being integrated right into my web browser is very, very helpful. I use it all the time, and then I use it on my cell phone constantly. Make sure I don't need to remember my 130 passwords. All right, let's see. How long does it take to get results from a dark web scan? That is instant. And I should mention that we do actually have the ability to run one-time scans just to kind of give you the state of the health of things as it stands. So if anybody is interested in having one of those run, just feel free to contact me or anybody at the office and we can get that handled for you. But again, I mean, I think that is a great tool. It helps you kind of get ahead of things, and I wouldn't turn away from it, because it's definitely something that'll help you, again, learn about these incidents as they happen as opposed to on the tail end. And thank you, Randy. Said good presentation, very informative. I appreciate that. All right, well, it looks like we may be done with our questions for the day. Of course, you guys know that if you ever have anything that you want to ask, the team here is more than willing and happy to be of assistance. I'm always available to you guys. To give you a little preview, next month we're going to be doing this on, I can get you the date, I think it's July 17th, if that's a Wednesday, but we're going to be covering phishing scams. So I would highly recommend that you register for that. I'm going to be distributing the recording of this webinar to you tomorrow. with a link that you can send out to your team. The more the merrier. The more we can educate on strong passwords and good password policy, I think the better for everybody. So I look forward to sharing that with you. Hopefully I'll see you guys all again next month, where again we're going to dig into some phishing scams, because that's really been hitting a lot of our clients lately. These emails are vicious and they're coming every single day. So we want to make sure that we're getting ahead of it and making sure that we're educated on it. So again, thank you guys very much for attending today. I look forward to seeing you guys next month. And if there's any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to reach me. My name is Abby, and I will see you next month. Thank you. One last thing, if you hadn't had a chance yet to click that registration link right down below, please take a moment right now and do so. That'll get you hooked up and registered for our next upcoming IT Office Hours session, which will be Wednesday, July 17th at noon. We're going to cover phishing scams, the latest and greatest that's going on in 2019, some of the new examples and situations that we're seeing hitting the market, the things that you can be on the lookout for, some of the stuff that you want to make sure that you're educating your staff on, and then also some solutions that are available to help you and the business mitigate your risk. I look forward to seeing you there, and that's about it.